Welcome back, Santa Clarita Valley. I'm Perry Smith, KHTS News Director, your host of SCV Sheriff Talk, brought to you by All American Bail Bonds. Here with my host, co-host Shirley Miller from the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station, and want to introduce Deputy Tim Ferrone, who's been quiet so far, a longtime member of the VITA program and one of its leaders and organizers, a former VITA Deputy of the Year, 2011, and wanted you, Deputy Ferrone, talk about some of your experience in working with the kids, because Sarah was just telling us about how much you guys do as far as intervention and creating that stable background. What type of attitudes do you see in the teenagers when they come in, and then how do you see that progress as they come through the program?
Well, first off, when we do meet the child for the first time, it's almost kind of like selling them on the program, because they sit down, they're slumped over. Mom and dad, most of the time, did not even tell the child, hey, we're going to VITA. They didn't explain why they're coming there. Exactly. The first thing I say when they sit down, I look at the child, hey, tell me why you're here. The first thing the child does, looks at me, I don't know. And then mom or dad will go off for the next 10 minutes telling us about the inadequacies of their child. So once we separate, we send the parents off and we do our assessment. It's a 203 question assessment tailored by North Point.
203 questions.
203 questions.
So that sounds like a pretty broad spectrum.
Well, it covers everything. It covers, basically from who they live with, biological parents, stepmom, all the way down to, have you used drugs? Are you allowed to go to the mall by yourself? Do you ride around with friends unsupervised? And then at the end of this, it'll calculate what the risk factors are for this child. Once that's done, I also, and Deputy Tim will do this also, is we kind of sell the kids on the program, and we let them know this isn't just about you. This isn't like you're going to get dropped off and we're going to fix you. It's not an auto mechanic shop. This is a family issue. And I have told this, and I've been doing this for a long time with the parents. I'll look them straight in the face and say, we as parents do a lot of things that are destructive to our child's progress, and we need to be held accountable for that. Some of the stories are pretty horrific of the family life of these children. A lot of the times, the parents will not own up to the things that have been going on. I'll have a gentleman that's 15 years old sitting in front of me, and I'll say, well, where's dad? And then mom will chime in, oh, he hasn't seen him since he was 1. And I'm like, wow. So that that must upset you. Mom will look at him, no, he's fine with it. You know what I tell the kid? I look at him, I said, you know what, I'd be really upset. I give him that open space to tell me, yeah, you know what, Mom, I am upset about it. And it does hurt. And that's probably one of the reasons why I've been angry for the last 14 years. Mm-hmm. And we let the kids know also, at this portion in our career, my job isn't to take kids to jail anymore, it's to keep them out of jail. And that's what we're focusing on.
Is it easier, I would imagine, to get the parents on board, but their behaviors have been kind of wrong and they're not aware of it, whereas the children are being made aware that their behaviors are wrong? So is that easier to see that, in that correction?
It is, and we have to throw ourselves out there also. I tell them, you know what, I have 3 adult children, and I made mistakes. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm the perfect parent. I'm not going to tell you I'm the perfect deputy. But what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to give you the knowledge that I've received. And it's whether you actually put it into motion is whether it's going to work or not. Because even when I was younger, I would listen to Nick and Sharon because I was just involved. And we had a smaller multi-purpose room, so my office was inside our counseling session. And, by the time you get home, you're tired. You turn on the TV, and while you're sitting there, you're like, this is awesome. I need to use this tool. And, it's whether we can say everything we want to. And one of my big lines when we do our intake night is all the parents telling me, I will do anything for my child. Mm-hmm. And then I get into, well, these are what your kids are telling us that you're doing, which proves that you won't do anything for your child. It is for the parents just as much as it is for the children. Mm-hmm. And if they go in with the wrong attitude, they're going to be a rude awakening, because we do hold them accountable just as we hold the children accountable.
And this isn't just you share horror stories type of things. This is like a counseling and education, a bring along process. What parts of that do you see from your experience kind of resonates the most with the parents and then the children also? Is it different?
And we get phone calls on a daily basis, and we get frantic parents. They might have just left the sheriff's station because their child got arrested. They might be on the way to the sheriff's station. They're at their last resort, and they'll call. And, we'll discuss the issues and what's going on. But it all comes down to is, are you going to be supportive of the program? This is a 16-week program. They want answers then and there. Right. My son's smoking marijuana. Well, ma'am, if I could fix your son to stop smoking marijuana over the phone, I'd be a billionaire. Okay, everything's a process. And what we've been told, we go to a ton of training in the psychological field also, and basically is they have come up with 16 weeks. It's not 12 and it's not 18. 16 weeks is about the proper time to keep kids structured and focused and kind of regenerate the family. And that's where we're at.
I wanted to add, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that is a set time. Do you notice over your years of experience with the program, there's a certain point where the kids start to click, or you start to get the buy-in that you're looking for? Because I would imagine that when you're dealing with at-risk use, it doesn't happen overnight. Oh, yeah. Like you're saying.
Absolutely. It is a process. And I tell the children and the parents in the beginning during our assessment that your child, after the first Thursday night and first Saturday, is going to come home and tell you how mean you are and how mean we were, and this is stupid, and why are we here? I'll be better. Now, the not so funny part is I will get 2 or 3 parents every class after intake night, because it is pretty rough. We do some yelling and screaming. We're not going to physically harm the children. But I'll get a phone call on that Friday morning after the Thursday night intake. You know what? This program's just not for us. Okay. And we're not going to beg anybody to be in the VITA program. It's your free choice. And this happens on a regular basis 2 weeks down the road. Hey, this is Mrs. Smith. Remember I called you the Friday after? Johnny, he's worse than ever. He told us he was going to be better and he was good for like that first weekend, and now it's worse than ever. Can I get him back in? We're not able to re-enter any children once we began. It's a very structured environment. It's not fair to the other children that already made the commitment. Right. And they do. They don't believe me in the beginning. I'm telling them by week 8 to 12, you're going to want to come to VITA. And they're like, you're crazy, Deputy Ferrone. As we wind down at week 15 and we do our exit interviews, we have kids in tears. Deputy Ferrone, what am I going to do next Saturday? I'm just used to coming here. So, they're bought in. But it's a process.
Yeah, that's really something to see those kind of changes, because on the first night you see that attitude and you see that they're probably avoiding even making eye contact with you because they do not want to be there, and just to see that change in them, it's amazing.
It is. And, Deputy Templeton came aboard about 3 years ago, and she kind of was like, well, what is this whole thing about, like intake night, and what did you see?
Intake night is interesting night. I always tell the kids during their interview with us that I'm not going to be talking like this, because on intake night, how am I going to get 30 at-risk kids to come together? So there will be some yelling and screaming and some tears from some. It's not something that they are used to, that structured environment with the Marine Corps participants, the Marine Corps volunteers. They're not used to that type of environment. They're not used to basically us putting them in check for their bad behavior. And sometimes these kids need to hear it from someone else other than their mom and dad. And that's where we come in.
So going back to the nuts and bolts, if somebody wants to sign up, it's $75 for the program?
It's $75. That includes the entire 16-week program. You get a 4-piece set, which are shorts, T-shirt, sweatpants, sweat top, all embroidered with the VITA logo.
Because you're doing physical training.
Because we're doing physical training, and we have one winter session, and this is going to be our summer session. So most likely they're going to be in there running shorts and T-shirts. But what every VITA child that's been through VITA knows is you come in your full and complete uniform, and then we'll discuss what we're going to break it down to that day. So it's very structured. You can't just show up when you want to, in what you want to, and do what you want to. That hasn't worked for them. So I tell the kids, this isn't like going to high school where you can mess around and disrupt everybody and the teacher just really can't do anything but send you to the principal because they've had it with you. No, we're just going to take the whole class out, and we're going to deal consequence-based training, which means we're going to start running.
So, yeah, perfect segue to my next question. Can you give an example of the type of corrective actions that you look for, like if someone would be acting up in one of your sessions?
Sure. everybody starts out with a clean slate every time we're at Vita. So every Saturday morning, hey, if you guys all bring your homework in, if you guys are all squared away, if everybody has their uniform on, we'll figure out something else to do besides physical training in the morning. Well, I've been doing this for 9 years. We've never not had that. We never had that happen. So we really haven't had a thought about what we're going to do if everybody comes squared away, because there's always one. Somebody that didn't shave, somebody that forgot to put their running shorts on, somebody that didn't do their homework, somebody that was out late the night before and didn't get here on time. So there's always a reason. And let's just say in particular, we're out on a field trip and the kids are acting up. Well, when we get back, we'll end up doing our hill run, or we'll end up doing wind sprints, or we'll end up doing wall squats or push-ups. And we all do it as a group.
So if one kid doesn't do their homework, it affects the whole group.
It does.
Okay.
And that's
peer
another lesson
pressure.
you're trying
Peer
to
pressure.
teach
The
them.
the best way to get a child between 11 and 17 to operate the way you want to is peer pressure.
Interesting.
So if you're interested in finding out more information about the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station VITA program, you can go to VITA.LA and you'll find the information on how you can apply, or there's also a link on the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station website.
Hey, quick question before we take our commercial break. I wanted to ask you, Deputy Frone, so what do you tell the kids when they say, Deputy Frone, what do I do next Saturday? What types of, how do you encourage them to keep up that positive momentum?
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
exactly. At that point, prior to the ending of our program, if kids qualify, we have an agreement with Cynthia Liarnis from the city. She is one of my go-to girls, and she always helps us out with employment for the teens, summer jobs and spring jobs.
Awesome.
So
Sounds
there's
like a
different
great
programs. Oh,
partnership.
it's crazy how great it is.
Library volunteers?
Library volunteers, or if they've made extensive goals, then we'll send them over to maybe the Explorer program over at the station.
Awesome. Well, we have to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. I want to talk about being a deputy on the 4th of July with Deputy Kevin Duxbury, who was on shift while the fireworks were going off.
Busy day to be working.
Definitely. We'll be right back on SCV Sheriff Talk, brought to you by All American Bail Bonds on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We're here on SCV Sheriff Talk. I'm KHTS News Director Perry Smith with co-host Shirley Miller from the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station. And we just had Deputy Tim Ferrone talking to us with Deputy Sarah Templeton about the VITA program at the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station. And wanted to also, we have Kevin Duxbury in the studio. Deputy Duxbury, you are the zone leader for Stevenson Ranch, and you were on shift during July 4th.
Yes, I was.
That was a long day for you, wasn't it?
Long day.
It was a long day for me, but I was just writing about the stuff that you were doing, like a quarter of it, so I can't imagine what your day was like. You were just giving me some statistics about how many calls you guys had. It was crazy. Can you tell me a little bit about working the 4th of July in the sheriff's station?
Well, because I'm with the crime prevention unit, we specifically went out as a fireworks suppression team. So our job was to just roll around the entire city looking for people using illegal fireworks and confiscating them.
And for those that aren't familiar, the crime prevention unit, you guys are the zone leaders for the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station, and each of you has a specific area that you're responsible for.
Right, but then what we do is we look at the crime stats, and if there's a problem in a certain area, then we'll come together as a team and develop a little secret squirrel mission or something like that to go out and try and deter that certain crime. So the 4th of July, most people don't know this, but all fireworks are illegal in Santa Clarita, including the ones marked safe and sane. There are no fireworks allowed in our city whatsoever.
Because of the fire risk.
Right, and this is a problem that we have every single year. So this year, the crime prevention unit got together as a team, and we went out there as what we call no-call cars, which means we don't get the regular crime calls. Our job was just to go out and find people using fireworks and
that kept you nonstop busy.
It
you and all
did.
The other
We
guys on the
were
team.
out there for 8 straight hours, and we did not stop once.
Wow. So when did you guys come on, and when did it kind of slow down?
Well, yeah, I don't want to give up too much intel because
Sure.
we do it every year. But we started pretty
evening
early
time,
in
I
the
imagine.
evening, and
Okay.
we went well past midnight. Enforcing this. So we did confiscate a lot of fireworks. We did write some citations. The possession of the illegal fireworks is actually a misdemeanor. You are looking at a $1,000 fine and possibly 6 months in jail if they decide to go that route.
Wow.
And the reason being, there's a reason behind it. Look where we live. If
Sure.
you'd been here during the Canyon Country fires, it's really something I'll never forget, actually seeing houses in Canyon Country, central Canyon Country, not on the outskirts, burning down because of people, being irresponsible with fire. Those fireworks are no different.
Or the Sayre fire a few years back. Every few years it happens just because of where we are. It's just
Right, especially in other areas of the state of California. There's been some major fires going on. So, I just don't understand why we tried to put out the public service announcements prior to the 4th, the importance of not using fireworks, but unfortunately there's people that still do it.
And you're not there to, ruin anybody's 4th of July celebration. You're there to make sure everyone's being safe. So what do you guys do when you, show up to us? You're out there you're not taking calls. You're looking for anything that looks dangerous, right?
Right. And it's not hard to find when you start hearing the booms and seeing the,
yes,
the things
kind of hard to
explode over
hide.
your head.
I'll give you that. I would imagine it's easier to find, but you still have to figure out where the boom's coming from.
And the biggest problem we had when we get there is that it's usually an entire street function. Everybody's out. There's a big pile of fireworks in the middle of the street, and then when we say, okay, who does this belong to?
Everybody looks at everybody else, right?
Nobody speaks up, so we end up just confiscating.
Right.
The dog did it.
I saw quite a large collection that you guys had at the station that was primarily, I would imagine, seized. They were all legal.
Yeah, rough guesstimate, I think we impounded, and it doesn't sound like much, but you got to remember fireworks are very light, but I think we probably confiscated about 50 to 75 pounds worth of fireworks, but that filled up the back of my truck. So it was a pretty good load that we took off the street.
Do you know how many calls for service we got for fireworks?
Don't quote me on this. I say that, but Perry always does. I want to say we roughly had about 280 complaints of fireworks alone.
That sounds about right. I think I might have heard, I was just trying to confirm it, around 268, so 280. So it was somewhere in there. And those were not crime calls. Those were strictly firework calls.
Firework complaints.
That wasn't an alcohol disturbance
right,
because it's 4th of
right.
July. That wasn't something at the barbecue. That was just fireworks.
Right, and a lot of people in the community, I know they were getting frustrated because our lines were busy at the station. Everybody was calling.
How do you address 280 calls? I mean, how much time can you guys? I mean, you have to be pretty quick on the scene, I'm guessing.
And that's that's just it. Our station prides itself on going to every call. So, we hit them as fast and as furious as we can.
Advice to people who are maybe like, I would say the group that you addressed last night as far as maybe next year. What kind of things can you say?
The thing is, yes, all fireworks are illegal in Santa Clarita, but we have a good alternative. We have 3 great professional fireworks shows every year at the mall, at Magic Mountain, and in Stevenson Ranch. And, we do a lot with street closures and making it safe for the public to sit along the curbs and on the sidewalks, because if you get around the McBean, Valencia, Magic Mountain area, you can see all 3 of those shows from right there. So we do offer a very positive alternative for people to enjoy the holiday.
A safe alternative.
Yes.
Awesome. For a very special segment for the show, we have a guest calling in from SCV Emergency Now and Helicopters, Lights, and Sirens, and the scanner. We have Carrie Dower Hewitt on the line. Carrie, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great, Perry.
Awesome. Thank you for calling in, Carrie. And for our listeners who might not know, can you tell us a little bit about your Facebook groups and what they're all about? Because I feel like the Facebook groups that you're one of the admins for is kind of a perfect cross-section for what we talk about here at SCV Sheriff Talk.
Well, SCV Emergency Now was kind of the brainchild of our mother admin, Ray Smith, and it was really after there was a need for emergency services notifications. When we found people in the community would turn to groups like Facebook, our neighbors would seek out information when there was a fire or a big car accident. And we noticed that there were a lot of people who wanted to be on scene, who wanted those details. Having a background with family and law enforcement, we recognized that it was important to keep people safe and informed. And if they were informed, they were less likely to go kind of get in the mix and get in the way.
Awesome. And I know, the gauge that I hear from law enforcement is that people appreciate when people are active and involved in the community. And as part of that, I wanted to ask if you maybe had a question for the deputy that we could ask Kevin Duxbury, since we have him in the studio here, from what you hear in your groups.
We get mixed feedback from our members. Helicopters, lights, and sirens, everybody wants to know when that fire truck is running down their street, or when there's law enforcement activity at their apartment complex or what have you. And we're wondering, as a group, do you feel like the age of technology is assistive maybe or restrictive when it comes to citizen involvement?
Well, First of all, good to hear from you again. It's been a long time. We worked together on the Gaxiola Road March a long time ago.
Yep.
So, that was a very good turnout. You were very helpful, and we appreciate it. So good to hear from you again. The whole technology thing with social media and all that, it's had its upsides and its downsides. It's a great way of getting information out quickly. This has definitely been proven. And just like a short example of that, I noticed in my zone there was a rash of tailgates being stolen off of trucks. And with that, I was able to get on Nixle and Nextdoor and put out right away that, hey, we're seeing a problem with this. This is what you can do to prevent it and protect yourself. And I was able to get that information out really quickly. The only downside of the media is I can get information all the way to Baghdad in a heartbeat, but it's the recipient who has to pick that information up. So it's the time delay of somebody seeing it. And on the reverse end of it, what I see a lot of is, I'll get emails or posts on Nextdoor or Facebook saying, hey, there's a suspicious vehicle in my area. There's a loud party across the street from me. And I don't see that until 7 or 8 later after they've posted it. So I think people have to realize that social media is a great way of getting information out, but it is not a resource for emergencies or immediate calls of service. You have to go the old school way and pick up the phone and call the station.
Which is always our focus.
Exactly.
And that's just even for our members that are listening. That's the first thing that we assert is if you feel like something has taken place that requires attention, we're not the group to report that to. The Sheriff's Department is the immediate channel that you go through.
Right.
And just if I could throw out the reminder, the number to call if you ever have anything to report at the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station is 661-255-1121. Obviously, emergencies, you want to go ahead and call 911 like usual, but if you have a specific issue, a concern in your neighborhood, or you want to speak with your zone leader, 661-255-1121. Thank you so much, Carrie. I really appreciate you calling in and asking that question. I think it benefits us. And again, if people want to follow along, there's a KHTS Facebook page, there's SCV Emergency Now, there's Helicopter Lights and Sirens. Great resources for what's going on in an emergency.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So, Kevin Duxbury, I wanted to also ask you about what's going on in Stevenson Ranch, and as a zone leader for Stevenson Ranch, do you have anything, like you had mentioned, the tailgates, anything else going on that we can remind people about as far as crime prevention, because that's one of the goals of the show here?
Yeah, well, the regular crime prevention things, and now that... not that I want to blame our youth or anything, but what it comes down to is kids are out of school now.
Put them in the VITA program.
The kids are out of school. The colleges are closed. There's a lot more traffic out there. So as drivers, we have to be very responsible in looking out for these kids that are going to be out playing and on the streets and that type of thing. We're dealing with a lot of heat issues, so leaving your pets in your cars, that type of thing, we absolutely don't want to do that. As far as crime prevention, we're always dealing with the property crimes, mostly theft from vehicles and vehicle burglaries, where people are leaving high-value items in their cars in plain sight.
Those crimes of opportunity.
Yeah, either in their driveway at night, or when they go to use the gym, or whatever, they leave things in plain sight and they find these things stolen. So it's just a matter of bring these things inside, keep them with you, or secure them in the trunk where they can't be seen. And even the trunk is not 100% guarantee that they won't get to your items.
One thing that I noticed in a crime story that you guys put out that kind of I think is a good top of mind thing to remind people is you can't take for granted that other people are going to watch your stuff for you, even if it's in a public place. We see people put stuff down at the gym all the time. We see even people don't put the valuables in your locker. Don't keep it on you or keep it on your
right.
car.
Because even on
it's
restaurant,
not secure. It's
even
not
on
as secure as you
restaurant
think.
tables.
Yeah.
I see crime reports where
Shopping
people
carts.
They get up to go use the restroom in a restaurant and they leave on the table their cell phone or purse, and
it's just too easy, and
right.
people unfortunately will do that. So
yeah, we're seeing a lot with I shouldn't say we're seeing a lot, but a common occurrence in the summer is the bicycle thefts, and it's the same thing. People
are out
just want to
more.
run into Starbucks or something, and I tell people, can you outrun somebody on your bike? So if you don't think so, then definitely lock it up, and just even if you're going to be in just a minute, it only takes a second. So lock your stuff up and.
Good point. Yep. Even if you're going to be a minute, it just takes a second. I like that soundbite, Deputy.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much to our guests. I want to call you guys all out by name again. Deputy Duxbury, Deputy Ferrone, Deputy Templeton, Stacy Schlesinger from the City of Santa Clarita Public Libraries, and my co-host, Shirley Miller, as always. Pleasure. Thank you. SCV Sheriff Talk brought to you by All American Bail Bonds on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Thanks for listening.